You are listening to the Marketing 32 Show with your host, Brett Allen.
Hi, Brett Allen here, host of the Marketing 32 Show, where I connect with leading dentists, dental influencers, and industry experts to bring you guys the latest and greatest in strategies, insights, innovations to grow your practice. This episode, as always, is brought to you by the team here at Marketing 32. We're the only dental marketing team that I know of with a performance guarantee that if you're not growing, you don't pay us. We truly are invested in who we work with, and we only work with those who we know we can deliver exceptional value in growth. So if you need help with growth and you're looking for help with marketing or another marketing provider, reach out to us at marketing32.com, schedule a 15-minute discovery call. We'll go deep on your goals and figure out if this will be a great fit together to work together. Quick shout out to Dr. Martin Mendelson. He is our first repeat guest on the show that we just recorded. He's got a new book out, and it's all about the subtle mindset shift that will transform the way you view your practice and have more achievement and fulfillment in the work that you do in dentistry. So check out that episode. It was fun to record with him. All right, quick shout out. Super excited today to have Olivia Smith on the show. She is a trusted consultant, coach, and speaker with a passion for helping dental practices thrive. With experience supporting over 100 practices across the country, Olivia brings a wealth of knowledge in operations, practice transitions, team coaching, and leadership development. At OS Dental Consulting, they specialize in implementing effective systems and empowering doctors to bring their best vision to life. So excited to have you on the show, Olivia. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be a great conversation. So I always love to start with our guests kind of going into their background of dentistry, like why and how did you get into dentistry? And then tell us that story from when you started to what you're doing today.
Yeah. So I got into dentistry. I was finishing up my last year in college and needed to do I was actually a marketing major and business
Oh,
management
cool.
and needed to do an externship for graduation and ended up at a dental practice that needed some help with marketing. Very quickly got into operations and fell in love with that piece of it even more, and grew the practice. And so I was lucky and fortunate enough to work for a dentist that treated me like a colleague instead of, team member, and really showed me how to read x-rays and understand the clinical side and the operations side of dentistry.
Awesome.
So I worked there for quite some time. And then eventually I was helping his friends with practices. We were expanding and growing. He was invested quite a bit in me. And then I was recruited by Spear Education to go into consulting for them. So that's where I worked with the bulk of my practices.
Okay.
And I did that for several years and really enjoyed it and found that I really loved private practice more, and really enjoyed the hands-on being boots on the ground in the offices with practices and teams and helping them overcome obstacles. So several years ago, I started my own company and went fully into consulting. And so I have a boutique
That's awesome.
consulting company that we work with clients and just really whatever obstacles they're facing and trying to help them reach their goal and their lifestyle, not necessarily, the cookie cutter. Here's what you have to do in practice. If you're an owner, a private owner, what do you want your practice to look like, and how can we help you get there? So
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. We've had a handful of dental consultants, coaches on the show, and I know everyone brings their unique approach and expertise. And I love picking your brain and figuring out, what are those bottlenecks? What are those ceilings that dentists tend to butt up against that are prohibiting their growth and prohibiting, where they want to be with their practice and their team and everything. So it's great. I'm excited to ask you some questions. So first question I have for you is, in your experience, working with 100 practices, what's kind of a common challenge that they faced, and how do you work through that with them? And maybe you can share us some tip, advice and tips on that.
yeah. I think it really varies. I have practices right now all over the country, from the West Coast to Florida to New York, just kind of all over the Midwest. And I would say the biggest challenges that teams face is really around case acceptance and understanding and how to get through to the patient, how to speak to what's important to the patient.
Mm.
That's probably my number one issue with teams is that, some of that verbiage. I have some great teams that we work through that process. They get really comfortable and really good with it. And they start to see that increase, which is always fun when they put in the work. And then I'd say the second thing is probably leadership. So having
Mm.
that, most of these doctors never went to school for management or leadership or have any leadership development
Yeah,
courses.
clinical only. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of them are naturally great leaders, right? We have those out there as well. But for the most part, we have a lot of private practice owners that are really struggling out there, even corporate leaders that are struggling with DSOs. So
Mm.
helping them figure out how to communicate with team members, how to overcome some of those day-to-day snags that come up, and
Mm.
even understanding like when is it appropriate to grow, when is it appropriate to add staffing, how to manage that staff and hold them accountable, which is the
Mm.
biggest hurdle usually is accountability. Yeah, those are probably
Yeah,
the big two I'd
those
say.
are the too big.
Hmm.
That's great. Yeah, I'm curious to learn more about how you help docs improve case acceptance because on the marketing side, we have all kinds of different practices we work with. We've helped now over 260 practices, and everybody's kind of unique in terms of what they do, how they do things. And we do our part to drive the patient to the practice, get them scheduled,
Yeah.
and then it's up to the team and the doc to make sure that there's actual production coming from those patients. And
Hmm.
so, can you share with us some of the little tweaks and nuances that go into getting a patient to say yes?
Yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
would say that the first step is get curious behind your system, right? Like before you dive right in and you say, oh, our treatment coordinator isn't closing cases enough, or our front desk isn't handling the phone calls. I just get really curious first about what does that process actually look like? Where are the breakdowns? How are we handling our handoffs from the front to the back and vice versa? Um, and just really working with teams and seeing like where is it that we're breaking down.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, what I'm finding is that it's either one, we need some training on how to communicate with our patients, how to not, even if we're an insurance practice, how to not feel insurance driven, but really
Uh-huh.
focused on here's what you need and letting the patient make an educated guess, or not educated guess, an educated
Y-
decision.
You're right.
um, but then also it comes down to the follow-up too. Like, how are we following up with our patients? How are we educating them while they're in the chair, in the consult room? And I always tell team members and patients, a treatment plan presentation, it's not just going over the numbers. It's really their time to ask questions and for us to help make sure that they're fully confident and comfortable with the treatment that they've decided along with the dentist. So um,
Mm.
sometimes I find that teams just go in and we're busy, we've got the phone ringing, we've got all these things happening, and we're just over the counter giving them a quote for a few $1,000s. And then we're wondering
Uh,
why no one's scheduling, right? So taking the time to review photos with them, make sure that they already understand from the doctor and that they are accepting the case before we talk financials is, I think, the big key. And then following up if they
interesting.
don't schedule, like, is it okay if I give you a call, in a week if I
Uh-huh.
haven't heard from you? And then doing that follow-up because a lot of offices don't have time or they don't have a dedicated
Yeah, there's a
person.
lot of unscheduled treatment. Yep.
A lot of unscheduled treatment. So there's other tips and tricks like, talking to their motivators, making sure if you have somebody who's really detail oriented, they want to know what the doctor's accolades are. They want to know how skilled your team is, versus somebody
Mm.
who maybe is like a very high driver that just wants to make a decision and get out of your practice, right? So there's
Mm.
tips and tricks and trainings I do with teams to help them understand how to talk to patients and communicate. And then from there, it's
Mhm.
just presentation skills and, how are we presenting what we want them to accept.
Yeah, was it helpful in the early days when you first worked with that first dentist? Did you see good examples of that? Was he good at, closing cases?
Oh yeah, he was very skilled at closing cases. He still is. Very skilled
Yeah,
at closing cases. He allowed us the opportunity. He did a lot of large treatment, more specialty treatment in a general practice. So we did a lot of sleep and implant cases and things like that. So those are different kinds of cases, right? If I'm going to sell a $50,000 case, that's a different conversation than a patient that has some resins that,
Yeah, yeah.
$300 copay. So you definitely
Right.
have to take a step back and look at the process and figure out, okay, this person deserves more attention and time, and they have probably have a
Mhm,
lot of questions, and we might have to get a little bit more
mhm,
creative in how we're going to make it fit within their budget or make it work with their schedule or put them at
mhm,
ease with what they
mhm.
need.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I was actually just up in Boulder, Colorado yesterday. Shout out to Dr. Dan Allman from Allman Family Dental. He's my dentist, and I just finished Sure Smile,
Oh,
so I had the
great.
clear aligners, and he was taking the little nubs off my teeth. And on my way home, I stopped at another practice in Boulder that is they're heavily focused on cosmetic and implants. And I met with the office manager there, and she office manager slash treatment coordinator.
Mhm.
They have a really great ambiance to the practice. They have a great team, and they're doing over 300,000 a month in production. It's one of these higher end practices, and I know there's differences out there when you have a practice like that versus another doc who's maybe has three team members that's either just getting started or in the same place for a long time and stuck in their growth, maybe doing 50 to 70,000 a month in production. Um, how do you help that one doc that's kind of struggling turn into and get to a place where they've got the team and it's like what I'm talking about, these practices that are just crushing it, and it's a great practice.
You're gonna like my answer because it's branding. I bring it
Yeah,
back with the doctors of like, what is your mission and vision? Like, how do you want your practice to be portrayed? And then we back it up and we look at like, well, what message are you sending to patients, right? Like, and we look at the entire practice. Let's say I have some doctors where I start with them and I'm like, okay, you don't like all these emergency visits, but yet your website says that you take emergency 24-hour care.
yes,
Right? Or like
yeah,
your focused keywords on your SEO are emergency dental, but yet you wanna be a high-end cosmetic office that's only open 3 or 4 days a week.
yeah,
And then we take a look at your process. So if you say that you're a high-end office and you wanna make all this money and you wanna be high producing, what does your first phone call look like and feel like? How are we more of a concierge service at the ad with the admin team, or does it feel rushed and like patients aren't important that come in? So really
mm,
taking a look, and it's based on every individual practice. We do look at network participation, things like that, strategies with those things, but what is it that you want to be as a practice? Like, what do you want that to look like? And then we can take a look at your systems throughout the entire team, right? Do we have everybody in the right seat on the team?
mm,
Or are there strengths? Maybe do we need to move everybody around and realign? And so we take a look at all those things and make sure that whatever we're doing really matches the brand. And if it's not the brand that you want it to be, we need to adjust our systems and processes and maybe even our team a little bit and make sure we're maximizing all those things. So it can
yeah,
be quite a process and it takes a lot of time, but I have a practice right now I went into, and when I went in the first time, they're doing great dentistry, but the office looked like it was still from the 70s, right? And
oh wow,
they've done a
okay,
facelift since then, and it's gorgeous, and it matches the personality. And so,
oh good.
we talk about if you want people to spend money with you, they're gonna have a hard time if they come in and it looks like
It's
you're
like a hole in the wall
yeah,
practice. Yeah.
yeah, like that works for great
Yeah.
Chinese food, that really doesn't work for dentistry.
Right. Right. Oh man. I can't tell you how many times I talk with doctors, or we have potential people that want to work with us, and I look at their website and we look at their social media, and it's brochure, it's templated, it's stock photography,
Yep.
and it doesn't tell a story that's really going to capture that patient that's wanting quality dentistry, right? And it doesn't distinguish them from all the other guys out there who are paying the low cost, $200 a month website company that's just hosting their website,
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good marketers out there. We're not the only ones, but when the approach is flawed that way, and it's not aligned with like you said, their brand and what they're trying to do, and it's just purely based on dollars and budget,
Mhm.
then there's a misalignment in the patient journey. And
Yeah.
when they're Yeah, or vice versa. Let's say you have a super high end and you've invested a ton on marketing and and the website and the photo videos of your practice really convey who you are. And then they come in and they see a totally different experience, or it's rushed and it's a hole in the wall practice and it doesn't even look like the ones that they've got on the website.
Yeah.
That disconnect is big. I had Fred Joyle on
Oh, I
the
love
podcast a
Fred.
while back. Yeah, Fred's great.
Big one.
And we talked all about how marketing is everything for the
Mhm.
practice, or everything is marketing, excuse me. So not only just the online presence, but how they experience the front desk, how they, when
Mhm.
they sit in the chair, what's the whole experience like? The
Yeah.
smell of the practice, the what's on the walls, and how the team communicate, all of it adds up. It sounds like that's what you're getting at. You really try to
Mhm.
dig into how to help them with that and get improved.
Yeah, and even what's the culture of the office? Like, patients can tell if somebody's having a bad day, or if doctor adds in a crown and the team's like, "Oh, I've gotta stay late," like, right? Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't
Negative
feel
Nancy.
good, and so, um, I do focus a lot on communication and team culture with my teams, because if you have a great culture, it's easy to implement and update and add all these fun things that match your brand, or even tweak what you have right now and make sure it really matches your brand. But if we
Hmm.
don't have the right team in place, or our culture is not very great, it's gonna
Yeah.
fall flat. So, that's a big one too, for sure.
Tell us about that. So if we've got a listener doc or a team member doc who's like, man, I fit that what she's talking about. I'm not sure I
Yeah.
like my team, or I feel like my teams get creating a lot of friction. And how how do you navigate that when you work with teams? What's that process like? How do you determine whether someone should stay or should go, or how do we change a culture?
So I think that it's something that it's different for every team, right? So it's really based on, like, what does that individual team's need, um,
Mm,
and what's causing that cultural friction. Like, sometimes I come into practices and we're sorely understaffed, and when I
mm,
look at the numbers, we have a $5 million practice, but yet we've got two
mm,
people doing admin and they're always behind. And they're
mm,
wondering, why can't we keep the schedule full, or why are we losing patients out the back door? Maybe the assistants are always running behind because we're not scheduling efficiently. So really looking at, like, what is causing that friction. And then I always talk to doctors. Usually, when I start working with a client, the first thing we look at is culture, and if it needs some work, I have some tips and tricks up my sleeve, like books that I can use to get the team engaged and talking about the topic. Um, or exercises or things we'll do to kind of break the ice. But usually what I start with is, like, a revisit of the mission and vision. Like, what is it that you're here for? What are your core values as an owner? Are you living those? If not, it's okay. We can always have a fresh start tomorrow, right? And
mhm,
then really working as a team, creating some team agreements, and then starting to hold the team accountable moving forward, and making sure that every decision that we make goes back to, does that align with what I want for my practice? Just like the branding and the mission, right? Like, is
mm,
that what I want? And if it's not, it's an easier decision to make. And usually I find that most doctors that are frustrated with their team, it's because of a lack of communication. Like, they're frustrated that so and so at the front always does this or that, or somebody in the back is, I've got a hygienist that's always
mm,
grumpy. And it's like, well, have you talked to that person and told them how that's affecting you in
mm,
the practice? Or have you had an open communication? So we
mhm.
work through a lot of those things, and leadership development is usually a big one. But I always tell doctors,
Yeah.
if you're I was a micromanager when I started out, I'll admit it. I'm a recovering micromanager. Um, but you can always turn that around and really focus on, how can you develop your people, and do you have the right people in the right places? So that's what I love to support teams with
Mm.
and help them get through.
Yeah, you're right. The culture, I imagine, is a direct reflection of the leadership, right? And
Mhm.
so, yeah, it seems like that would be a tough job for you, Olivia, to go in and try and say, "Hey, the problem's you." Like, you know? So,
Yeah.
hopefully they're open to that kind of critical and candid feedback. Um,
Mhm.
Well, tell us more. Like, if I'm a practice who's looking to work with you and go through your process, what's that like? Walk us through kind of that process of,
Yeah.
like, day one to achieving, the goals. Do you stop working with people? Or do you get to a place where they no longer work with you, or is it kind of a constant thing that needs to be?
Yeah.
addressed that you're working with people?
So it really depends on the client. I do some short-term projects where maybe somebody needs help with just, a one-off training. I tend to find that a lot of those offices, the trust that you gain as a coach with the team is usually around year 2 to 3, I find.
Mm.
Because there's going to be that hesitancy. So when I start off with clients, I do an analysis for them. We look at their numbers. I help them with their annual planning if they have never budgeted before. We make sure that we work through fee management, maybe insurance analysis, make sure that they're set up appropriately, and then we take a look at their current systems and say, hey, where are your systems at? Are there any opportunities that we need to focus on first?
Mm.
But we pair that with what is the doctor's goal? So every practice I work with, it looks completely different. I have people that bring me in because they want to retire in 5, 10 years and we need to get the practice ready for sale. I have other doctors that are like, I want to expand and we'll do a transition and open another location. And I help them through that process. And sometimes I discontinue working with them 6 months after. Other times they say, no, we need you to stay on. Um, so it really varies practice by practice, but all of my current clients that I keep long term are, we're there for the long haul, and it's just I'm a partner and a support for them, and we do focus on goals every quarter, and we're working towards whatever they want as a team annually, and really just making sure that we're hitting their goal, and it's that operational support that most of them
Mm.
either don't have. Or if they do have it, I work with their leaders and help develop their leaders to a higher level so they can continue to grow.
I love that. Well, this has been a great conversation, just tip of the iceberg, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
you guys, you got to check out Olivia and get in contact with her. Um, for our listeners who are interested, where should we send them, Olivia?
Yeah, I would
How do
love
they get a
to.
hold of you? What's the best way?
Yeah, you can reach out to me on my email. It's Olivia, or you can via email Olivia at osdentalconsulting.com. Or you can even go to osdentalconsulting.com and fill out a form, and I'll reach out, or
Okay,
someone from my team. And so, yeah, we'd love to help out if you have any short-term trainings. I do front office training as well as office manager training and fee analysis and things like that. So if there's any little side projects you need support with, we're happy to support.
that's awesome. Okay, great. Well, before I let you go, I always like to close the show with what's that one epiphany? If we could help our listeners have that, that golden nugget that would have a ripple effect in their practice and their life. What what's that one piece of advice you think would fit that criteria?
I would say my favorite is just advocate for your patients. And just because it's a no, don't hear no if they say no to you. I want you to hear not right now. And so make
Mm,
sure that you're following up with them. And don't be scared to ask, may I ask what's keeping you from getting the treatment that you need? Right? Like don't be
mm,
scared to probe a little bit more because you never know what that person's going through or what the situation
mm,
is right now. And if you're consistent, and even if it's 6 months from now at the next hygiene exam, make sure that you're still following up on that treatment because if it is medically necessary, then you want to make sure that they're getting the care and they're not being neglected. So
mm.
that'd be
I
my
love
biggest
that.
one.
It's not a no right now. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, advocating for the patient. This is great. A lot of gold here in this episode, Olivia. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for your time today and for being on the show.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Until next time on the Marketing 32 show, have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Take care.